So I've never been to a Renaissance fair that has indoor bathrooms. Hi, I'm Hannah. Thank you so much for coming to my channel where I talk all things costuming, cosplay, and events. Today we're talking about the Great Camelot Renaissance Fair. Now, this fair on their website says it is the world's only traveling fair. There is one location in Peru, Indiana, and another in Carrollton, Ohio, which is kind of near the Canton, Akron area. For this trip, I went to the Carrollton, Ohio location. It looks to me that this fair is pretty new. According to the renlist.com, where you can find Ren fairs near you and all that good stuff, the Ren list says it was founded in 2024. However, when I was in attendance at this event, it didn't feel like it was only in its second year. Like it felt a lot more established. Like there were a lot of people there. I don't know. I didn't get that it was like their first time kind of situation. And I think I found out about this event through Facebook, but obviously when I find something on Facebook, I always go to see if they have a website. Is it legit? What's going on? Their website is a little confusing because you have to constantly make sure you're looking at the details for the correct location, making sure you're also purchasing tickets for the correct location. In my opinion, the tickets were a pretty good value. My single day adult ticket online in advance was $15. And even on top of that, if you are familiar with the fairy performer Sprout, if you put in Sprout at checkout, you got to save an additional 10%. So my ticket was 13 and some change. Versus had I waited till the day of and bought my ticket at the gate, it would have been $20. So already pretty good. The actual vibes of this fair were very similar to the Indiana Renaissance Festival. And I think mainly the reason I was getting that is because there were several vendors that I recognized from there, and there were several performers that I recognized from there, and a lot of the similar decorations around some of the stages and things like that. So they're not technically related, but there were similarities. I have to say, my biggest gripe about this fair was that it was actually really difficult to find. Like, I literally took, like, copy pasted the directions into my Apple Maps on my phone, and I still had a difficult time finding it. And the way Apple Maps took me to the fair had a sign that was like crudely handwritten that said emergency medical service vehicles only, EMS vehicles only. And then like no other information for how to actually get to the front of the fair. So I like kind of did like a whole loop, and my Apple Maps was just continually like over here, over here, over here. And I finally, like, it looked like I was going into this car dealership, but I had to go back behind this car dealership, and this actual fair location, the farm location that it is in, which I think is also a wedding venue or something like that. Anyway, this fair is like behind the car dealership, and then on the other side of this field there's also like apartments and condos and things like that. So I thought it was very difficult to find. And honestly, when I was in the line for the restroom later in the day, somebody was asking me where I was from, and she said, "Oh, yeah, well, we're local and we had a really difficult time finding this place." So that made me feel a little bit better. Granted, I'm coming from over 2 hours away, but I was like, I have no idea how to get in here. There were very small signs. I need bigger signs or balloons. I know balloons aren't environmentally friendly, but I don't know. We need to, not just this fair in particular, but other fairs, other small events, we need to do a better job about signs. For Ren fairs in particular, I'm almost wondering if we could do a Ren fair version of like a wacky, wavy, inflatable guy, but it's like instead of just like the red thing, it's like a wizard or a dragon or something. I don't know. There's got to be something we can do to make it a little more obvious for how to actually get to this place. So all that to say, it did not feel very whimsical. I drove up and I had to go like up a bumpy hill to in the grass to park. Parking was $5 cash only. They did say on the website that parking was directly done through like the venue. So I think the venue was the ones actually collecting the cash, which, you know, you got to get paid. I get it. But the hilly, uneven grass was not great. I did not feel good about driving through that. And honestly, when I had parked and I was, you know, doing the whole getting ready in the parking lot ritual, I found this there's another car that parked behind me that had an accessibility tag on it, and I was like, "Oh geez, these poor people are not going to be able to get down this hill and back up it at the end of the day. And then they called over one of the parking people and was like, can we park literally anywhere else closer? And thankfully that employee or volunteer, I'm not really sure, did due diligence and went and found that group a location that was much closer for their accessibility needs. But I don't know, maybe they hadn't asked that when they got in first, or maybe they didn't have their tag up in the car window when they came in. I don't know, but it felt odd that they were taken to like a regular parking spot and then had to specifically ask to get accessible parking. So after all of that, I finally find the fair. I finally get parked up this uneven hill. I'm walking down. I'm like, okay, great. How do I get into the fair? I eventually found it, but again, it was difficult. There weren't like arrow signs being like, come this way, enter the fair over here. And there also was not a clear delineation between scanning tickets that had been purchased online or waiting in line to buy tickets, which is something that I always find really frustrating. If I already bought the ticket online, why am I standing here waiting in line for people who are purchasing tickets? The entrance area did not feel very organized, and we'll come back to that later. Anyway, so I got in, I started walking around. There was a pretty good variety of food vendors and shops. There were several shops I recognized from the Indiana Renaissance Fair, as I mentioned earlier. But there were some new ones that I saw and really liked. I saw some really unique things from some of these vendors, including jewelry. Unfortunately, buying things was not a part of the budget this trip, there were but I did really appreciate seeing the beautiful work. There were some shops, of course, that were carrying mass produced AliExpress type things, which I've talked about it before. I'm not a fan of, but anyway, especially shops that sell fans like this for like $5 or $10 or maybe even more. Girlies, you can literally get these fans at Dollar Tree for $1.25 each. I have several of them. Don't buy the $5 one at the fair. I'm so sorry, Ren Fair vendors, but girls, don't do it. Don't do it. There was a building in this area that had a big sign for tattoos in it, which I did not personally go into. I was kind of interested to see what kind of designs they had, but personally, I did not feel great about being hot and sweaty and covered in sunscreen and being outside and then also like going to get a tattoo. You know what I mean? I love tattoos, clearly. I have several, but to each their own. This location also had like a big red barn, which I think is like the main event space for the location. So it was indoor and had air conditioned. This is where you would buy your alcohol if you wanted to partake in that. There were a couple vendors and a small stage in there, and there were indoor bathrooms. I cannot, like, I've never been to a fair that has indoor bathrooms. And don't get me wrong, like, it was not just the indoor bathrooms. There were porta potties around, but the I just can't say. I was just so excited. I was like, thank God, thank God. One other thing I will say about this event is, so I said at the beginning, this is not the only time we're talking about this. Oh, the entrance to the fair. A lot of fairs will give you like a printed map or a QR code that's like, here's the schedule and all that stuff. I didn't get any of that. And honestly, I was having a hard time kind of finding it on the website. And then I eventually, I think, went to the Facebook page and found it. But it was kind of difficult to find out when things were going on and what exactly was happening. All around all of the stages, though, there were individual signs saying what was happening when. But if you're trying to like plan out your day and what you're going to hit, it doesn't make a lot of sense for that to be the only place to find those things, right? But I did, of course, watch the joust. I saw people starting to gather by the joust, and I was like, oh shoot, it's gotta be happening soon. And I once again did not make it in time to get a chair in the shade, but I did exactly what I did at the Indiana Renaissance Fair, and I like sat in the corner of the under the tent. So I was like kind of close to some other people, but I was still in the shade under the canopy. Love it. Love being in the shade. I love when fairs provide shading over seating areas for joust and things like that, so you're not just absolutely baking in the sun. The background for the joust was like those apartment condo buildings I mentioned earlier, but also like a sea of parking lot. And I'm gonna say I did take a little bit away from the experience. I did really love the joust. I always love the joust, the horses, the camaraderie, all of it. I always love it. I even, well, I was kind of annoyed that it was like apartments and cars in the back. I did really enjoy this guy who was just sitting in his car, just watching the joust from his car. If I had the opportunity to sit in my car in the air conditioning and watch, I probably would too. So you go, buddy. I was pleasantly surprised to see that trinket trading was an option. I don't recall seeing anything on the website about that or anyone talking about it in the Facebook page, but I will say not many vendors were a part of it, just like a handful of vendors were a part of it. I did trade with one vendor, and then I also got the opportunity to finally meet Sprout, the fairy performer who I mentioned earlier in the video was doing that promo code with the event. I've literally always wanted to meet her, and I have just never been able to. There's always been a long line, whatever. I finally met her and got to take a selfie with her. I gave her a trinket from my bag of let her pick, and I gave her one of the hand painted mushrooms. It had green on the top and it had some glitter on it. She took it and then she gave me like a little bean. Will treasure forever and will definitely be going up on my trinket shelf at some point. One of the entertainment acts was a man with his cockatoo birds. I missed the show, but I was able to see them in their large cages later on, and they were an absolute riot. I ended up taking pictures near the cages because there was like some really nice greenery in the background and it was kind of calmer. I was in the shade, I was away from a lot of people, but I was still near these birds. um, and they were so cute. And I just absolutely lost it when they started cursing. There are signs all around these cages that are like, do no cussing, no cursing, don't touch the birds, all of that normal stuff. I don't know if somebody said it and then the birds started doing it or what, if they just started, it sounded like they just started doing it out of nowhere. They were just started cursing, a two-word phrase, one word starting with an M and the second word starting with an F, you know what I mean? I felt kind of bad for any families with young ones that were hearing that, but honestly it was so funny to me. Like I was trying to take pictures and stuff and I just kept just losing it. So big fan of the birds, really big fan of the birds. There were other activities including archery, face painting, and I think there was some axe throwing, but that was like way far removed from everything else. Understandable, don't want to be accidentally hit with an axe. That's very understandable. There was also a real live unicorn giving rides to small children, which I thought was a really, really cute touch. And I was getting ready to leave, making my way towards the exit, and I was stopped by Silas, the game master. I will link his Facebook page below, but he challenged me to a quest or challenge or whatever you want to call it, where he played 3 songs on his violin and I was supposed to guess to see if I could get them all right. And there were different categories I could choose from. And I ended up choosing musical theater because I work in theater. And unfortunately, I did not get them all right. It was very embarrassing. But I still had a really good time. And it was a really fun interaction and something I haven't experienced at another fair before. So he was really nice and complimentary. And, you know, other than the cursing birds, I think he was probably the highlight of my time at the fair. So I really enjoyed that. I hope to see him at another festival in the future, or if there are other acts similar to this, other performers similar to this at other fairs, let me know in the comments below because I really enjoyed it. And then when I went to exit, it was very awkward. So whenever I was like, we're going to come back to this entrance area, here we are, we're coming back. The exit is the same as the entrance as most places. Most places will have a lot, like an opening for people coming in and then an opening for people coming out. Not the case. It was all one little narrow thing. So not only was there confusion from people coming in of where do I buy tickets? I already have my tickets. Where do I do that? I was also just like trying to leave, and then someone from the staff like held up her hand to me, like I couldn't exit or something. I don't know, maybe she was gesturing to somebody behind me, I have no idea, but it was really awkward. So I waited for this big group of people to walk through, and then to the person that stopped me, I was like, can I exit here? She's like, oh yeah, go. And it was just such an odd experience. Like I don't even really know what else to say other than it was really weird, and it was kind of a bummer to end the day with, I'm not gonna lie. Now, this wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't talk about my outfit. The mix of thrifted and secondhand purchases and some accessories from various fair vendors. So some of those things obviously are not purchased secondhand, but I did opt for my sunflower bandana in place of a hat. And I was thankful for that small amount of sun protection it gave me. I'm usually a big fan of hats. None of my hats I thought really went with the outfit that I chose. So I was like, bandana it is, and we're good to go. And it was very hot. Actually, when I parked my car said it was 88 degrees, and that was noon. And I was like, this does not bode well. But it was very hot, and I knew it was going to be hot. I ended up doing this cotton skirt I recently thrifted, and I didn't do a second underskirt or a petticoat like I typically do. So that also helped me stay a little bit cooler. And then I used my skirt hikes to hike up one side of it. And then all the rest of my costume was also like cotton based. So I was really, I mean, obviously I was sweating, but like I was really pretty comfortable. That's what I have to say. Just cotton is key. If everything cotton you can. I saw a lot of people with some really amazing costumes and props, but there were also people who were not dressed up. And I heard several people throughout the day saying, "Oh, it is way too hot for me to wear a costume. I'm not doing that," which I understand. I don't judge. I understand. So my plea to Ren fairs everywhere: can we do more in the spring and the fall, please, and less in the heat of the summer, please? I am begging. Anyway, so my overall thoughts: I enjoyed this fair, but it was very small and more than a 2-hour drive from home. I might return again if I'm like free that weekend, but it's definitely not a fair that I would like block off my calendar for, if that makes sense. Definitely, if I had something to do in the area that weekend, I would absolutely go. Since this is a younger fair, I'm really excited to see it grow and see kind of what happens. And while I loved that barn location with the indoor restrooms, I felt like the actual event space was not like the whole grounds of the space were not really ideal for this type of event, like specifically with the parking issues. And I thought it was kind of weird because also when I was trying to find the place, there was definitely signs for like going in a different direction to get to the county fairgrounds or whatever, the city, whatever, the fairgrounds. And I was like, oh, why aren't we at the fairgrounds, you know? So I don't know, maybe once this event grows a little bit more, it can go to a fairgrounds type event where the parking is a little bit easier and it's a little bit easier to find. That's just my 2 cents. But I did not by any means have a bad time. I did have a good time. I just love the Ren Fair. If that wasn't clear, I just love the Ren Fair. And that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other fairs that you are thinking about going to, let me know in the comments below and I'll add it to my list. Thanks again for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!